Hi, everybody. Welcome to CORELIGHT'S Spiritual Weather Report. It's December 10th, 2023, and this is Brad, and I'm calling in today from beautiful Blythe River Canyon, South Africa. I just arrived in South Africa a week ago, and I have had such a joyful reunion with my beloved Leslie. It's been about 6 months since we have been together physically, and we Zoom all the time when I'm away and traveling, but there's nothing like being together physically, as you know. So we're both doing really well, and I'm actually going to send an email update to the CORELIGHT email list soon. And I'll include some pictures of us and some news, and we'll have a little catch-up so you know how we're doing. Oh, it's so good to see. I can see your names. I can see people who are calling in, so it's just delightful. I'm glad to know we're connected in this way. It's always delightful, these monthly calls, to feel your energy and to be together. I wish we could be in the same room together and you all could meet each other, because obviously I get to see who you are, and I know most of you, but you don't know each other, or at least you don't know if you're who else is on the call. So anyway, it's an exciting time. It's an amazing time of year always. This time of year, we've got 12/12 coming up in a couple days, and the solstice and the holidays with Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's. And this is a power time. It's a power window, and we're going to talk about that today. But before we begin our session, I just want to welcome you all. I want to welcome everybody who's new to CORELIGHT, and welcome to all of our old friends as well. For people who are new, every month I tune in on what's happening in the collective consciousness, and I'm always shown a few themes to talk about on these calls. And today we have 5 themes. The themes are moving from war to peace. That was a theme from last month, and of course we are definitely still in that. So I actually felt like we should just do a little recap of what we talked about last month, a little summary, because we are so much still in those energies. So moving from war to peace is the first theme. The second one is an exercise we're going to do together for moving beyond war. The third one is having hope. The fourth one is upcoming power dates, the portal that we're in of the 12/12, the solstice, the Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, etc. That's number 4. And then number 5 is I want to end by talking a little bit about 2024. And I asked inwardly in meditation about it, and I was shown a very clear image of a roller coaster ride. So I thought, okay, this is important. It was so clear. It was like not ambiguous at all. And I just thought, all right, well, we're going to talk about that. So we're going to unpack that. That's the fifth theme, 2024, a roller coaster ride. For anybody who might be new to the spiritual weather report calls, I start by offering a guided meditation, and then I speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we always have time for questions and answers at the end. And we always close the session with a brief guided meditation or a prayer or whatever we have time for. If you need to leave before the call ends, you can always listen to the recording later, and we do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube. Before we begin with our guided meditation, there were just a couple little housekeeping update kind of things I wanted to mention to you. I'm working diligently with my friend and colleague, Anna Breitenbach. We are planning on relaunching our online course called For the Love of Animals in January. That's our hope and our prayer. So if that interests you, stay tuned, please. We will be announcing it by email when it's ready. But we hope for January. And if you want to know about the course, you can, right now on our website at corelight.org, on our homepage, if you scroll down the homepage, you'll see a little box for it. And if you click on that, you can also watch the little video that we made to help give you a little idea of what the course is about. But we've got a whole other, there'll be a landing page that tells you a lot more about the course. For now, there's just a little video. Also, with my friend Anna, I wanted to tell you, I was really very honored this week. Received an invitation to be interviewed on the Buddha at the Gas Pump online show. I don't know if you're familiar with Buddha at the Gas Pump, but it's a really, really lovely show. I try to tune in as often as I can to it, and they interview people who are on the path of awakening. Leslie has been interviewed. It was in 2010. Leslie was interviewed, and a few years ago, Anna Breitenbach was interviewed. And so I feel deeply honored that I've been asked to be interviewed on the show. And they let me know that I could invite Anna to join me if I wanted, and of course I want that. So it'll be both of us. It'll be both Anna and me on the call, and I'm not sure when that's going to air, but I think it's probably February. So you can stay tuned for that, and again, we'll be announcing that. Just a couple more quick things. I keep telling you that I'm spending time in London, and I'm sure many people are wondering what that's about, and I have mentioned it once or twice before, but I can't talk a lot about it right now because we're not nearly ready to launch the project, but there's a foundation in London that's supporting Leslie's and my work right now, and we are turning the Marriage of Spirit book into a series of social media videos. It's more than the Marriage of Spirit. It's also going to be some of the work in some of the topics in my book, Living with Enlightenment, as well. So we're spending significant time making it a very high quality project so that it's of interest to people, that it's engaging and helps. Since most people aren't reading books anymore, I thought to create little social media videos would be a good idea to help spread the word, to make it more accessible, to make the Marriage of Spirit and some of the other themes I like to talk about more accessible. So that's the project, and that's why I'm spending so much time in London. And I'm very, very excited about it. I'm bursting to tell you more about it and to launch the thing. And I know that 2024 will be a big year for us in that we'll take a big step in that direction. I can't promise it'll be launched in 2024, but I'm hoping that I can share more with you about it. So if that interests you, please stay tuned, and I will be keeping you posted on these calls and also by email. The last quick announcement here, just a reminder, in October we did launch the online course, The New Paradigm of the Heart, Transcending Victim Tyrant Consciousness. I'm super excited about that course. It was the first Zoom course that I ever taught, and that was several years ago during the COVID time. And so we've edited it, we've streamlined it. It's really beautiful now. It's got a beautiful new format. And if you're interested in that, you can go to our website, CORELIGHT.org. And if you just scroll down the home page a little bit, you'll see it there. There's a little video that goes with it if you want to learn more about it. Without further ado, let us start our guided meditation. So I invite you now to please relax and get comfortable and take a few long, slow, deep breaths and just let go. Breathing in all the light and the life force that surrounds you. Breathing out any tension in the body. Breathing in love and peace and joy. And breathing out any stress. Breathing in the present moment. And breathing out any worries about the past or the future. Just completely letting go and relaxing with each exhale. So I invite you now to, as you continue to breathe, to put your attention on the top of your head. Feel warm energy pouring down into your scalp and relaxing all of the muscles that it touches. like a beautiful warm wave, like a gentle leaf falling from a tree. Just slowly drifting through your body, relaxing every single muscle, all the muscles of the head. Feel this energy pouring down over your whole head, relaxing your forehead and your eyes, temples, ears, cheeks, nose, mouth, jaw, back of the head. And let's focus for a moment, especially on the back of the tongue. When we relax the back of the tongue, the whole region of the body relaxes. We'll just feel that whole region of the back of the head, the neck, and the shoulders, and the whole face, just relaxing and letting go. Feel this energy continuing to pour down your body and relax your arms, all the way down to your fingertips. Pouring down through your body, relaxing your chest and your upper back. Taking a few long, slow, deep breaths right down into the diaphragm. Breathing light in through the top of your head, right down to the diaphragm. Just for a moment, very gently stretch the diaphragm by pressing down just a little bit and then release. And let go with the exhale. And let's do that a few times. Breathing light in through the top of the head. Down into the diaphragm. Stretching the diaphragm just gently, just a little bit, and then with the exhale, deeply relaxing. Letting go. And one more time. Long, slow, deep breath, bringing light into the top of your head. See it and feel it coming all the way down into the diaphragm. A gentle little stretch of the diaphragm and then release. Feeling a very, very deep peace entering the body as you relax. And feel this warmth, this gentle flow of warm energy pouring down over your stomach, your abdomen, your lower back, relaxing all the organs, down over the pelvis, front and back, the genitals, the buttocks, especially the psoas muscles, which run down the front of the hips on the right and the left. Just feel that warm energy just melting the tension there in the psoas muscles. Feeling your whole pelvic region relax and let go. And let's take a couple of long, slow, deep breaths all the way down to the pelvis, breathing light in through the top of the head. See it and feel it going all the way down into the pelvis. And then releasing and relaxing with the exhale. And one more time. Breathing light in through the top of the head, all the way down to the pelvis. And releasing and relaxing. Feeling all the tension in the pelvis just melting away. And now let's continue to feel the energy slowly pouring down the legs. This warm energy relaxing all the muscles of the legs, front and back. All the way down to the ankles, feet, and toes. So now just enjoy this deeply relaxing state and feel the warm energy flowing through your whole body from head to fingertips and toes. Just feel it sweeping you clean, sweeping you clear of any tension. And I'll be quiet for a few moments while you just allow that and scan your body again from head to toes and breathe light and love and warm energy into any place where you still might be holding on to some tension, and then release it with the exhale. As you relax and breathe, I invite you to put your attention on the root chakra at the base of the spine, the perineum. Just feel how when you put your attention there, the root chakra naturally opens, and that whole part of the body naturally relaxes and lets go. And then I invite you to drop your grounding cord from there down into the earth. And it's okay if you might be new to this, if you can't feel it, or it's unfamiliar and it seems strange, that's totally fine. You can just follow along and visualize and relax as much as you possibly can. And just see if you can feel your grounding cord going down into the earth and connecting with the core of the earth. Wrapping your grounding cord around the core of the earth. Some say that the core of the earth is iron. It's made of molten iron. And then other people say differently. There's new discoveries being made all the time geologically, and I invite you to visualize the core of the earth in any way that you like. Maybe it's more like gold, more like a sun, or maybe it's a crystal of some kind. Just see if you can feel that energy at the core of the earth and connect with it. And draw the earth energy back up into your body. And feel how grounding this is, this exercise. Feel how you feel anchored, you feel grounded, you feel connected to Mother Earth. And feel your connection to her in the form of the floor and the chair. Just be with that connection. Feel, what does that feel like? Just be mindful of what that is. This isn't a thinking exercise. This is just a feeling and a being. You can let any thoughts about any of this go. And just be with what is. Be with the feelings. And as gravity gently pulls you towards the earth, very softly, feel yourself relaxing more and more into the arms of Mother Earth, like a little baby, safe, held, comfortable, completely at peace, completely relaxing into the arms of the Mother Earth. Just feel how supported you are, how safe you are, how nurtured you are by our Mother Earth. She gives us our lives. She provides everything for us, including these bodies that we get to wear for a few years before we slip them off like an overcoat and return to who we truly are, which is source energy, pure awareness, consciousness, the soul, spirit. And meanwhile, we get this amazing experience in these physical bodies, these beautiful, miraculous physical bodies on this exquisite planet. Beautiful, beautiful blue planet. So I invite you to just sit with this. Just sit with the grounding energy. Feeling Mother Earth supporting you, surrounding you. I'm not sure if you can hear here at White River Canyon in South Africa. I have a whole chorus of frogs and crickets and all kinds of insects outside. It's nighttime now. So if you're hearing noises, that's what you're hearing. Sorry. But you can enjoy it like me. I'm just out in the middle of nature. Also, I'm at the base of a sacred mountain called Modimale. And so if you're sensitive, maybe you might feel some of this African earthy energy that I'm deeply immersed in right now. I invite you to receive that and feel it if you can. The local people here, the tribes people, always worshipped here. They would come and worship at the base of the mountain and bury their sacred vessels. And then they would leave. They would never live here because it was too powerful. It was too sacred. And then Spirit directed Leslie and me to live here and hold space and be stewards of this sacred land. So that's my job. And I invite you to feel that if you can. Feel that sacred energy. It's truly a very special vortex here. It's called the Nilotic Meridian, this longitudinal line that runs through this area, and it goes straight up to Giza, to the pyramid and the Sphinx. We're directly connected. And the white lions are also right here on this line, just a few miles from where we live. The white lions have only ever appeared in the wild in a place called Timbavati. Timbavati in the local language means the lions that came down. Some say the lions that came down from the stars. Now they're everywhere because they're in zoos and circuses, and hunting camps, but their endemic range is right here. So I invite you to feel that white lion energy as well. Sacred beings. Now I invite you to draw this earth energy up through the body, up to the top of the head. Up, feel it flowing along the core meridian of the body, which is like a fluorescent tube that runs right down in front of the spine. And when you draw that earth energy up through your body, feel the connection between soles of your feet and your root and your crown. And feel how when you put your attention on the top of your head, on the crown, there's a natural opening and a relaxation. It just happens. You don't have to do anything. It just happens. And again, this is not a thinking or a doing. This is a feeling and a being. And it's okay if you don't feel it. You can just visualize it or imagine it. And as the crown opens, it's like 1,000-petaled lotus on the top of the head, unfurling petal by petal, opening up. And feel how divine energy, the light of the highest divine beingness, pours down into you. This is your soul essence. Your higher self energy pouring down into your head. It's like a gentle rain, golden white light, filling you up. And just be with that and feel how your whole body, your aura, from your head to your toes, is filling up with this beautiful golden white light of the divine. Every single cell of your body is like a little sponge absorbing this light. Trillions of little sponges inside you, soaking up the divine energy. So as you soak up the light from above, and as you continue to feel the earth energy drawing up from beneath, just feel how this beautiful physical body of yours is the connection point between matter and spirit, between heaven and earth. This is the magic of this human experience, that we get to marry spirit with matter through this beautiful vehicle of the physical body. So just be with that. Be with the magic and the wonder of that. You don't need to think about it. Just feel the gratitude, perhaps. Feel the love, the joy of getting this experience. And while you sit with that and feel this beauty and this gratitude and this joy, I'm going to say a little prayer and an invocation for our call today. We call on Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the Self that we all are. We call on all of our spiritual guides and teachers who surround us in the highest love and support. And we ask that you please wrap us up in a cocoon of beautiful golden white light and love and healing energy. Guide our conversation today into the highest love and the highest wisdom. Hold our hands as we walk out into the world, into our soul's highest purpose. And we give thanks. Thanks for the gift of life. This human experience, and for this beautiful blue planet, schoolroom Earth, where we get to learn our lessons and have experiences for a few years. And we give thanks for the love that we share. We give thanks for this field of love that we get to sit in every month. And it doesn't matter if you're listening to this call in the future or present time, because at this level we're all connected. There is no time and space. And so at that level we are all together as one in this field of love, transcending time and space. So let's take this opportunity before we close our meditation and our prayer. Let's send a special blessing out from our hearts to everyone on this planet who is suffering due to war. So much pain and suffering in the world due to war right now. And so we just feel a wave of love pouring out of your heart and blessing all those affected, and not just people, but the rest of the natural world as well, all the animals and plants and ecosystems. It's like a balm that you send from your heart. Beautiful wave of love and light, compassion. Especially Israel and Palestine and all the surrounding countries in the Middle East, especially Ukraine and Russia. So we pray for peace. We pray for an end to war on this planet. Please make us instruments of peace. And where there's war, help us to sow peace. And we ask for protection and inspiration for all those who are working for universal peace in our world. And we pray for miracles. Special dispensation, because it's time now. It's time for this nonsense to end, this horror to end. It's not okay. So we bless this earth with our love, our intentions for peace, to live in peace ourselves, as well as to manifest outer peace in the world, because outer peace begins with inner peace, as we all know. And again, we give thanks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Allah. Isn't it wonderful? And when you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back into your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes and slowly begin to stretch and move. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Well, thank you, everyone. Gosh, it's always hard to talk after at these meditations. I can feel the field of love that we all share, that we hold together. It's very powerful. I hope you're able to feel it as well. Oh. And we do a lot of talking on these calls, but I always say maybe the most important thing about these calls is the energy, that we receive this beautiful field of love that surrounds us, that we create, and that is given to us through grace, the unfathomable intelligence of the divine providing this field of love that we also create ourselves. It's paradoxical, I know, but such a gift to just be in the energy and just feel it. So I invite you to just be, I know you have to multitask, most people, but if you can just be still and receive, at least be meditative while you're moving, that's always helpful, because this field does surround us through the whole call. So I invite you to receive that throughout the call. So the first topic is a recap of last month, moving from war to peace. It's just, as you know, we are still deeply in this. It's not over. It's an energy we're deeply immersed in, and I feel like we should just do this little recap of what I said last month as a reminder. But before we do that, I just also want to mention that as some of you will know if you're checking your emails, when war broke out in October in Palestine and Israel, I invited everybody to participate in a prayer vigil for 40 days and 40 nights for peace. And it ended a couple of weeks ago, which was on the Thanksgiving weekend in the U.S. And then I sent an email on Thanksgiving weekend as well, a couple of weeks ago, inviting everybody to participate in a continuing prayer circle for peace, especially in the Middle East, but also in the world ongoingly now. So that's for anyone who's interested. And in the email, I let everybody know that we created a new prayer circle page on our website at CORELIGHT.org, and it's dedicated to world peace. So if you're interested in joining the prayer circle, you can find it on the main menu at CORELIGHT.org under Sacred Activism. And then if you hover there, there's a submenu that comes out, and if you go to prayer circles, you'll see it there. And many, many years ago, I think it was like 20 years ago, Leslie and I created a prayer circle for peace in the Middle East and in the world. We did that because this has always been something very important to us. We spent quite a bit of time in the 90s traveling to Israel and Palestine and to meditate for peace, and we brought groups there as well to meditate for peace. And we've also taken many groups to Egypt over many years to meditate for peace. But when we put up the new website a few years ago, the World Peace Prayer Circle page didn't get included in the new site. And so now, obviously, it's time. So we've resurrected it, we've included it, and this new version of the prayer circle includes an updated prayer for peace in the world. I feel like it's especially powerful, so I do invite you to go check it out and use that prayer if it's helpful. And we've also included on that page a downloadable guided meditation that's called the 60-second serenity practice, and that is our gift to everybody. I included it on that World Peace page, the prayer circle page, because, as I said, the spiritual principle is that outer peace in the world begins inside us with personal inner peace. And so the more we develop our personal inner peace, the more we can manifest outer peace in the world. And we're also going to do an exercise today on this call to help assist with this as well. But just about the 60-second serenity practice, to be clear, it's something that Leslie developed a long time ago. She wrote about it, and I recorded it as a guided meditation in a sound studio, so it's a very high-quality recording, and it's a practice that helps people to move quickly into a state of inner peace no matter where you are, any time of day, any place, even when you're busy, when you're out in the world. So it's a 10-minute long guided meditation, but it teaches you how to do the practice on your own in just 60 seconds. Like I said, it's free, it's downloadable, and I should mention that you might have it already because we did send it out last year as a holiday gift to the email list. And now it's also a gift that we offer to anybody who joins our email list. But if you don't have it yet, I invite you to go there to the prayer circle page, the World Peace Prayer Circle page, to download it and have it and use it. Just in case, there may be some new people who don't know what a prayer circle is, and it's simply a group of people who pray together with the same intention, because when more than one person prays together, the effect of the prayers are amplified, and it's exponential. It's not linear. So the more people who hold the prayer, the more power the prayer has, and it's magnified exponentially. So I'm taking time to talk about this because it's an especially empowering thing to do if you're feeling a little bit hopeless maybe, or even helpless or weak. And, I think often nowadays when in the face of these huge problems that the world is having, we sometimes wonder if we're making any difference at all, just being one person in the face of something overwhelming. So I invite you to please join us in this group prayer. We really can make a big difference as a group. It's as simple as just before you go to bed at night, And or when you wake up in the morning, just take a moment to send that prayer for peace in the world out. And again, there's an example prayer on the website if you need one. You can make up your own as well. It's not rigid. Okay, so just to recap a little bit of last month's theme of moving from war to peace, I made a little list here because it was quite a lot. So I'm just going to quickly go through it. It does feel important to touch on these things just even briefly because they're still up. So first, we talked about the practice of witnessing, and we do that almost every month on these calls, and that's because it's really the most critical thing of all. Witnessing is our spiritual awakening. And it comes in degrees over time as we practice it. And I really don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I do every month. But just as a quick recap, the witness is also known as the objective observer. And it's that part of us that's always aware. It's always watching us do our personality patterns. So it's a practice that's about seeing more and more from that place, about spiritual detachment, about knowing that we're not our emotions, not our thoughts, not the body. We're pure awareness. And the thoughts and emotions are passing through us. Also last month, we took some time to acknowledge the emotional states that many people are experiencing, especially around war. And there are things like helplessness, as we just said, and outrage, fear, sadness, many things, but just naming a few today. And we also acknowledged last month just the sheer horror and the hell world that this conflict is creating. And I just think it's important to mention that, to acknowledge, so that we don't forget it, that we don't stuff it into the unconscious. It's still happening. So to name it is very important, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be macabre, but this is part of the work we're doing. We're shining a light on the shadow, and this is the biggest shadow on the planet. So if you're listening to this call, I would imagine that you've probably, from time to time at least, been feeling pretty emotional about what's happening. And so I think it's always good, like we did last month, just to take a few moments throughout our day. We can do it right now together, just to feel the love and the compassion for everybody who is directly involved in war right now. And also anybody who's affected by war. We all are, but I mean like people who have family members and friends in war-torn areas. And I mean any war, not just one. But also especially acknowledging the pain and the suffering in our world because of the wars. We did this in the prayer, so I'm not going to take the time to do it now, but I know that you're with me in this. So our hearts all go out to all who are suffering, all who are in pain. Last month we talked about the news, and honestly, I'm not tracking the mainstream news, so I really don't know what's being reported lately. But if you've got any access to news that comes directly from people who are involved, it's you're aware that it's just beyond shocking. It's surreal what's happening in these places, and I'm afraid, words just don't do justice to the horror of what's going on. We talked about how terrorism and genocide are the absolute lowest that human consciousness can go last month, and I think it's important to name that. And that's what we're dealing with. We're talking about the metaphysical principle that you can only go as high as you're willing to go low. I'm sure most of you know about that, but if you don't, what it means is that when we set an intention, we have to move through all the blockages that would prevent us from achieving the goal that we set. So that's the reason that we're going very low right now, because at a soul level, we've all set the intention to awaken the heart, our own personal hearts, the heart of the global heart, the heart of the planet, and to live from this heart space. And that is our collective intention as a species. We all agreed on that as souls before we incarnated. So what's happening right now is we're clearing out the basement. We're shining a light on all the shadows that are down there so that they're cleared, and then we can ascend into the heights of consciousness. And experiencing the horrors of war and terrorism and genocide is as low as we can go, as I said. So this is sort of like the grand finale at the end of an era, the end of the patriarchal era. It's like that old saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. You know that one? And I know it's a cliche, but it's actually very true. And it's very apropos for our times. I wrote a story, I had a personal experience of that it truly is darkest just before the dawn. I experienced that in consciousness, and I wrote a whole chapter about it in my book, Living with Enlightenment. It's a subtle physical experience that we literally go through a thick shadow, like a dark, Leslie always talked about it as a tarry, like a black tarry substance that surrounds the core of enlightenment within each one of us. And literally to penetrate into the core and to pop into that beautiful place of enlightenment, we literally have to go through that black tarry stuff. And it's not, I don't mean to make this sound scary. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying that it's a very gradual, gentle process over time for the most part. That I'm sure if you're listening to the call, you know what I'm talking about. We all have our shadow processes that, we need to look at our unconscious. And it doesn't have to be so scary. It doesn't have to be so awful. But the more we peel those layers away, it's layers. It's not like you're thrown in the deep end usually. So occasionally somebody has that, and it's called a dark night of the soul. But we're never given anything more than we can handle, and we're always supported in getting through those situations and coming out the other side. And I know if you've been on a path for any length of time, you know that. You know that our greatest challenges are our greatest teachers, right? It feels awful in the moment when we're experiencing shadow and the pain and the challenges of life. But then once we come out the other side and we've really learned the lesson and we've gotten the experience behind us, then we know that experience was our greatest teacher, actually. So I share that with you just as a kind of a reminder of what's happening collectively right now with this war. We're moving into the new paradigm of the heart. It's a global movement. So there was a lot more I shared on the topic last month, but I think we're going to leave the recap here. And if you missed that call and you're interested, you can always go get the recording. It's on YouTube. It's also on our website. It's streaming and it's downloadable at CORELIGHT.org. You go to the free resources page, and it's under monthly call. Somebody told me that the YouTube one has advertisements. And that is nothing to do with me. CORELIGHT receives no money. I receive no money from any advertisements. Unfortunately, I guess, as long as there are going to be advertisements, I wish there was some income. But if you want to listen to this without ads, you can get it on our website at the free resources page. And it's the free resources is on the main menu. There's a tab, and if you go to that free resources tab, you look under monthly call, and you'll find all the archived calls there. So when I meditated on what to talk about today, I got a very clear message that it would be a powerful thing to do a square on the polarity of war and peace. And so we're going to dive into that now. And for those people who might be new, a square is simply an exercise that Leslie and I teach in our book, The Marriage of Spirit. It's pretty simple, and we do them from time to time on these calls. And the quickest way to learn how to do a square, it's just to do one. So we'll just dive right in and start doing it. And basically what we're doing is a square is creating an inventory of the egoic structure, of the personality, of our thoughts, our thought patterns, our habits, our emotions, our memories. And so when we do a square, we're naming all those personality patterns, and we're finding the unconscious aspects, and we're making the unconscious conscious, because that's the path of spiritual awakening, making the unconscious conscious. When you do that, it's a healing and a clearing. So the way a square works is you start with, it's four corners, and so we have our polarity, war and peace, and we start with the fear of war, or the, you could say the repulsion to war. Fear is a pushing away, repulsion kind of energy. So that's one corner, and what we do is we write in a journal, we write about whatever part of us fears or is repulsed by war. So I did this myself before the call, so I'm just going to read what I wrote, and I did not do an extensive square here. I'm just giving you some examples briefly, and you're invited to continue this on your own if you feel guided to, if you like doing squares. So I'll just list my examples here for you to get this started. Okay, under fear of war, I wrote killing people and being killed, destroying lives, having my own life destroyed, harming the rest of the natural world, the nightmare of endless war. War is a hell world. And I wrote down the quote that Eisenhower said before he left office in 1960. He said, "Beware the military-industrial complex." And here we are in endless war. So I had to write that down. God bless him. I wrote down genocide, terrorism, and I stopped there. Like I said, this is just for the sake of time, I'm stopping, but you get the idea. There's plenty more that can be added in here. And the more you fill out each corner of the square, the more powerful the breakthrough you'll have. And just remembering that what we're doing here is we're detailing out aspects of the personality patterning. It's our conditioned ways of thinking and believing. We're not judging any of this. We're just naming it. And so I invite you to take this on for home practice if you'd like to continue. The next corner of the square is the desire for war. So we have repulsion or fear of war. We've got the desire or the attraction towards opposing energies. And we have attraction and repulsion to each side of a polarity. So that's the principle behind the square. So desire for war is the second corner. And that might be a corner that you have a little trouble with, because if you're new to squares, if you're new to doing this kind of work, you might think, well, wait a minute, there's no part of me that desires war. So if that's what's happening for you and you can't think of anything to add to this corner, it probably means that there's some unconscious stuff in there, because the truth is that we all have every corner inside of us. That's one of the principles. We've got everything inside of us. It's all in there somewhere. And all we're doing with the squares is shining a light on these shadow aspects, like I said, making the unconscious conscious. And that's the purpose of the squares, to make the unconscious conscious. So if you're struggling with this corner and you can't find any possible reason that you desire war, I'm going to read you mine to give you an idea of how this works. These are some things that I discovered. I hope that helps. The first one, to stop evil for a righteous cause, to protect the innocent and the good and the victimized, to punish the people who are wrong, to get revenge. Oh God, this next one. I remembered somebody said this to me once and I was horrified. This is when I was a child. They said, war is good for the economy. God. Oh, what a world we're living in. Nationalism, racism, a crusade or a religious war, ancestral karma. If you don't know what ancestral karma is, let me give you an example. I have a personal example of this. We've talked about ancestral karma on these calls before. It's basically in the Bible, it's called the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons. So basically, it's, we're passing down trauma. There's a scientific field called epigenetics. It's very fast growing, and it's proven that trauma is literally passed down through our genes. Genes carry the trauma of our ancestors, basically. So I have an example of it. Here in South Africa, Leslie and I live in a neighborhood that is divided kind of in three factions. There are three types of people that live here. There are British-descended South Africans, Dutch-descended South Africans, who are also known as the Afrikaners, and they're foreigners, like me. And in the beginning, 20-some years ago, when we first moved here, we could feel there was a lot of animosity. And so a group of us tried really hard to create peace in the neighborhood, and it was, looking back on it, was very naive. And it failed. We tried and tried, and it actually failed in the end. I won't go into the details. But I remember I was so sad. I was so disappointed because I really wanted to try to help create some peace here. And it was a service. It was my karma yoga, my seva. And I asked Leslie in the end, I was so upset, and I said, why do you think it failed, And what she said was, it stuck with me to this day because it was so powerful. She explained how there wouldn't be peace until the people really wanted peace. And her words were, oh, they don't want peace because they're having way too much fun fighting. And what we saw was that everybody here is living with these ancestral karmas from the Boer War. This is the war that was fought late 1800s, I think even in the early 1900s. So the ancestors of the war are still fighting. And anyway, I'm not going to go into more detail on that. You get the idea. It's just that we all carry ancestral trauma, this idea of epigenetics. And a lot of it has to do with war, because virtually all of our ancestors, most of our ancestors, were involved in some war. So we're all carrying the trauma of war in our genes. So there's a great, to me, this is an important part of this corner, to know that we've all got that war trauma inside of us, whether or not our immediate family or we personally were involved in a war. All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on. Like I said before, this is really not a complete list, but you can feel free to do the rest for home practice if you like. All right, the next corner, fear of peace. And again, this may be a bit of a hidden corner, right? Fear of peace doesn't sound like it applies, but here are a few things that I found to put in the corner in case it's helpful. We're having too much fun fighting, like I just said. Some people are having way too much fun fighting. When you advocate for peace, some people get angry at you because people who are entrenched in their opinions want you to be on their side. And if you're not on their side, then you become the enemy. And I've experienced this personally, not just with the example I gave you, but many other examples. And maybe if you're a peacemaker, maybe you've experienced this too. It's that old saying, if you're not with us, you're against us. That is just so crazy. I just need to kind of double click on that for a moment because it's part of this corner. It's such limited thinking. This is black and white thinking at its worst. And I always remember that scene from Star Wars, one of the Star Wars movies, where Obi-Wan Kenobi said, "Only a Sith deals in absolutes. If you ever saw that and you remember it, it was riveting. It came out at the time when it was the early 2000s, and the United States was about to invade Iraq, or had just invaded Iraq, and we all knew it was a bunch of BS, that it was not legit what was going on there. We were being manipulated. And that movie came out at the same time because it was the U.S. president who said the exact same thing. If you're not with us, you're against us. And if you can only deal in absolutes, there's no way to negotiate. There's no way to compromise. There's no way to see the million shades of gray in between the black and the white. And so, the reality of our world is that there are these million shades of gray between every polarity. So being able to see other people's perspectives, being able to put yourself in their shoes, that's the sign of higher consciousness. It's the quality of an ambassador, let's say. That it's diplomacy at the highest possible level. It's the ability to help foster peace in the world and also inside ourselves. Okay. I could go on. Let's get back to the corner, the fear of peace. I'm going to keep reading my list here. We fear peace because we're addicted to drama. We fear life will be too boring and dull. Fear the wrongdoers will get away with whatever they've done without being punished. Fear of missing out on revenge. Okay, before we move, I'm going to move on to the next corner, but just a quick little trick. If you can't think of anything to add to a corner of a square, you can imagine that you're somebody who does have something to put in that corner. So like, for example, for this corner, the fear of peace, you might pretend you're somebody who works in the military-industrial complex. And then you would say, well, why would they fear peace? So, like, for example, you might find that they fear losing money, or that they fear losing their career, and their ability to support their family, and that kind of thing. So it's just a little trick that's helpful. If this truly is very unconscious for you and you can't think of anything to put in a corner, that's always helpful. All right, last corner. And again, that's a very partial corner there. You can do more if you like. The desire for peace. So that's, no doubt, this is a very easy corner for everybody on this call, because we know about peace. We all want peace. Peace leads to love, leads to joy. Peace is the foundation for love and joy. I'm just going to read my list here. To thrive. To watch others thrive. Because if there were peace on the planet, we could focus on healing the environment and caring for the natural world. When there's peace in our lives, it's easier to create beauty, to feel fulfilled, to be able to focus on our purpose, to evolve in consciousness, to heal ancestral karmas, to not pass our traumas along to our children, to feel good in my body, to relax and let go. All right, I'm going to stop there, and as I said before, you can do more on your own if you like. The last step of the square exercise is the offering up prayer, and that's when we let all this go. We give all the unbalanced states of mind back to Spirit. We give back the conscious and the unconscious, and we ask for a clearing and a healing of the patterning. And we're going to do that at the end of the session today. We'll say our prayer at the end, and we'll offer up our square. So let's move on to the next. I hope that was helpful. I hope it felt powerful to me to do that square. So I invite you to join in and do that on your own if you would like to. It is a powerful exercise, and it does shift personal consciousness as well as it's our gift to the collective as well. It's a gift to collective consciousness to do a square like that. The next theme is having hope. I wanted to talk a little bit about that and about having a positive outlook on what's happening in our world, despite how it looks on the surface appearance. And I'm not doing this to spiritually bypass, to deny and avoid. But I do think it's important to focus on this. So I have to say I've talked to a lot of people who are doing really well right now. They're maintaining their witness. They're holding strong in their core energy, despite all the challenges we're facing on our planet and despite the many, many personal struggles that people are going through right now. And so if you're in that category, I'm so happy to hear that that's happening for you, and I congratulate you. I'm with you there. That's where I'm at. But if you're not in that category, that's very normal not to be in that category. Don't feel like you're bad and wrong or less than. If you're struggling with what's happening, welcome to the world. This is just how it is right now. Most people are really struggling to keep their heads above water with this. So I wanted to say to you, it's important to remember not to lose heart, not to lose hope, not to give in to the despair that you might be feeling. Because the truth is that we were made for these times. If you're listening to this call, you're probably part of this, what I would call a soul group. And it's those of us who are committed to spirit, committed to awakening, committed to love, to compassion, to service, serving others. We will thrive even as we go through challenging times. And we're talking about millions of people. We're not talking about a handful. We're talking about millions of people are in this soul group we came as midwives to help birth this new paradigm of the heart. So it's a large group of us, lots of people. And there's just a very, very small group with this negative agenda. And unfortunately, it doesn't take many people like that to have a powerful effect. So they're having their fun right now, and they do seem invincible. And they're actually playing a very important role for our personal awakening and for the awakening of the planet, believe it or not. I mean, many of you probably know this, but if this sounds new to you, bear with me. They're not going to last. And I looked up my favorite Gandhi quote I'd like to read to you. There's this thing he said. Here it is. When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible, but in the end, they always fail. Think of it. Always. I'm sorry, that quote always gets me choked up because it's so true. And so it's going to take some time, but this is coming. It's not going to happen overnight. And it's likely to get worse before it gets better. But meanwhile, it's really important not to focus on everything that's wrong, not to get overwhelmed by, trying to fix the whole world at once, not to feel like you're so minuscule you can't make any difference, in the face of the overwhelm of all that's happening. It's really, really important to focus instead on the things that are empowering for you. So I wrote down a few things here. I want to read them to you. Things like small acts of daily kindness and love. Doing what's within your own small sphere to do. Focusing on your own spiritual awakening. And that includes self-care, by the way. Building the new paradigm rather than focusing on what's wrong with the old. All right. Um, let's move on. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the time. And I think we should move on to the next topic because it's sort of I think this is the key to what's happening right now. It's the time that we're in. This is a power window or a portal, if you want to call it that. And we can use this portal to amplify our prayers for peace in the world. And we can use this power time to ascend in consciousness personally. So very important to really highlight this piece today. I'm going to list a few of I already said at the beginning of the call, but I'll remind you in case you tuned in late. Tuesday is 12/12. That's a power day. Solstice is, and we'll talk about all these. Solstice is Thursday, December 21st. The actual time is 7:24 p.m. Pacific, U.S. Pacific. So in South Africa, that's 22nd, December 22nd at 5:24 a.m. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, Hanukkah. Hanukkah is December 7th through 15th, so we're right in the middle of that now. And then, of course, we've got New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So let's start with 12/12. That's coming up in a couple days. And again, if you're listening to this in the future, it doesn't matter. This is a window. It's not just that day. It's a whole window of time. It's the power portal. I would say now through the end of the year, actually, even to early January. So it doesn't matter if you're listening to this later. For 12/12, I wanted to say, I've talked about this before, but this is like a little reminder for some of you. So for some shamans, 12/12 is the most powerful day of the year. And they say that the power actually begins building on 8/8, August 8th, which is known as the Lion's Gate. And we always, on the late July or early August call, I always talk about the Lion's Gate. It's when the star Sirius aligns with our sun, which is in Leo, the lion. And Sirius is considered like the heart of our galaxy. It's a lot of people say we're in a binary star system. It's not just our sun. Sirius is the other sun, and we're rotating around each other. That's not scientifically proven, but there's a lot of evidence for that, and a lot of indigenous people have spoke about this for a very long time. So there's a lot of evidence to support it. And so what the shamans say is that the energy starts building on 8/8 at the Lion's Gate, and it builds over the final 4 months of the year through 9/9, 10/10, 11/11, and now 12/12, December 12th. So shamans practice rituals on all of these days, especially 12/12. And so it's an auspicious day to observe this week. If you've got the time, it's a good time to do a ceremony. It's a good time to receive the benefits from whatever time you have to put into a ceremony or processing or whatever it is you like to do, meditation. There's added spiritual power right now. And like I said, it's not just one day. This is a window. So it's going to go through at least the solstice, but I would say at least through early January. So let's talk a little bit about the solstice. Like I said, the solstice is Thursday, December 21st at 7:24 p.m. U.S. Pacific time. And in South Africa, that's December 22nd, Friday at 5:24 a.m. And of course, it's the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, which signals the shift energetically from dark to light. And you could also say it's from yin to yang, or receptive to active. And it's the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, which signals the energetic shift from light to dark, or you could say from yang to yin, going from active to receptive. And the solstice is always an energetic doorway. It's always a pivot point. Like I said, it's not just one day. It's a window that lasts for a few days before and after the 21st of the month. There's a very powerful energetic component to this time, but there's also a physical component. If you didn't know about that, it's a time when there's a reduction of the Earth's magnetic field, and that opens an energetic doorway for new energies to come into the earth and to be seeded into human consciousness. So I've always found that important to remember. This is not just some kind of, woo-woo, or if you don't believe in astrology, it's much more than that. There's physical as well as subtle physical energies at work here. And the solstice is a very good time to do a ceremony. This can just be simple, you can just light a candle and have a meditation. You can be alone, you can be with a group, you can do it in nature, you can do it at home, whatever you want to do, but it's always a powerful thing to do to mark the occasion. You make the universe your witness, if you're alone, and you can acknowledge that this is a pivot point in your life and in the world, and you ask for support with anchoring the new consciousness within you. Something simple like that. You make up your own if you want, but I always do at least something. Even if I'm busy, I'll take a little time to do ceremonies on these days. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Christmas and Hanukkah holiday period. This is part of the power of the portal, because it's sacred time for most people, and we can use this time as an opportunity to build our spiritual light. It's one of my favorite times of the year to do that. I know some people love this time of year, some not so much. I know some people who really, really don't like it. Some people have happy memories. Other people, it can be a trigger. It can trigger difficult memories. It can trigger emotional reactions, especially if you're alone and you like to be with family or friends. It can be hard. So whatever the case is for you, the truth is it doesn't really matter, because it's always a great time, like I said, to build our light and to deepen into our spiritual awakening. So how do we do that? I would imagine most of you already know, most of you already have, so this might be a reminder for most of you. But I would say, above all, it's a great opportunity to practice witnessing, especially if you're going to be spending time with your family, with your family of origin. Leslie always used to say, if you think you're enlightened, spend some time with your family. See how that goes for you. And I know many spiritual teachers actually have said that, but families can often, trigger us more than anybody else has the ability to do. So you can use that time with your family as like a measuring stick. Use it to see how strong your witness is. Use it to see how strong your enlightenment is. I'm looking at my notes here. Sorry. So I often say this at this time of year, but it does feel important. I think it's important to celebrate the holidays in any way that feeds you, and to avoid the things that drain you. So if it's something that brings you joy, then you do it. You just enjoy it. And if it doesn't, then you look at how to change it. Like, for example, there are many, at this time of year, we've got all kinds of traditions, right? Many people are doing traditions. We just do them every year because it's a tradition. It doesn't necessarily bring us joy, or even worse, it drains us. And if that's the case, it's definitely time to make a different choice. Because if we're growing spiritually, it's very important to do the things that help us build our light. So, it's fun to create new traditions. Do things that build your light, that serve the new you. And I think one of the biggest challenges in all of this at the holiday time is the busyness. Definitely in the United States, it gets pretty stressful with so much going on, and our lives are busy enough anyway. And in addition to that usual busyness, there's also all the extra activities: the gift giving, the gift buying, parties, the gatherings, the food, the decorating, music. You could go on, the list, and it can just get to be too much. So I don't think I ever realized there could be another way to spend the holidays until I spent my first Christmas with Leslie in South Africa. And I can tell you, like, here in the Southern Hemisphere, in the middle of summer, midsummer, people they use this time as an excuse to do nothing. They go to the beach, they sit by the pool, they relax, they read a book. So I always feel very blessed to be here at this time of year, because it really is an antidote to that busyness that we sometimes experience in the Northern Hemisphere. So anyway, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, especially if you're in the U.S., it's easy to lose your light if you get too busy and if you try to fit too much in. So it's super, super important to try not to do so much and to rather focus on building your light. You can make it a mystical practice. You can just take the time to pause when you need to, meditate, you attune to the energy, you reflect, you do what you feel you need to do, you serve yourself, you practice self-care. I remember when I first met Leslie, she gave me a practice that you might like doing. I had to mention it on the call at some point along the way, but the practice is that every day in meditation, you tune in to the energy of the earth, the energy of the collective, whatever you want to call it, and try to feel when the Christ energy starts to descend into collective consciousness. Doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. When we say Christ energy, it's the Christ consciousness, which is in all of us. And what Leslie pointed out to me so long ago was that it's a beautiful time of year for Christ consciousness, because it does come in, it comes down, it literally descends. And you can feel it if you're attuned, if you're sensitive. So you can feel that Christ energy coming into the earth. And it's fun. I really enjoy doing it. I try to tune in, and it's like there's usually a day where I go, oh, I feel it now. I can feel it coming in. So I invite you to try that. It's a very powerful practice to focus on that, and to focus on peace and quiet and on love, instead of on all the doings, all of the distractions that we get swept up in, that we get invited to participate in. But I also have to add, it's a spiritual truth that there are no rules to this, right? It's very important to use your discernment, and you practice following your inner guidance. Sometimes it's not about having more quiet alone time. And I can give you a little personal example to illustrate this in case it's helpful. I just had an experience of this. I crave quiet alone time. Somehow it's elusive for me lately. And when I was in London for several months, I was super busy working on this new project for CORELIGHT up until last week. And it was a big ramp up to my departure time. And I was trying to complete a big phase of the project. But I kept getting this inner prompting. Like, if I could translate the energy into words, it was like, you got to go see the play, A Christmas Carol. And friends of mine told me that A Christmas Carol, the Dickens play, had been translated into a theatrical performance, and it was being performed at the Old Vic Theater, which is a historical theater. And I resisted this feeling for a long time because there was so much work going on. And then suddenly I got it. I realized, like, I'm supposed to do this. So I treated myself. It was spontaneous, and it was fun, and it was so uplifting. And, that's A Christmas Carol is one of my favorite stories. It's a story about redemption and generosity, discovering love and compassion for other people, and I guess there was something about seeing it in London at the Old Vic Theatre that was just magical. It's the area where Charles Dickens lived and worked. He walked the streets there. He talked about the Old Vic. He wrote about it. So it was something that felt historical and inspiring. And I just felt like Spirit was giving me this gift, to be able to see one of my favorite stories acted out in the theater in this kind of extraordinary way, really. So I just felt so grateful, and I felt so inspired by doing that. And then afterwards, it was a matinee, and after it was over in the late afternoon, I walked the streets of London, downtown London, and I gazed at all the beautiful holiday lights and the decorations, and people were happy and in a festive mood, and there was a lot of joy, and I met friends later. I got a hot cocoa on the street and met up with friends who were working on this project with me, and we had a lot of fun. We laughed and we just had a joyful time. So I guess the moral of that story was that despite the busyness and despite the fact that I really crave quiet alone time, I took the time to follow my guidance and just do something fun. And it was so uplifting that it really built my light. And I think that's the point of the whole thing. If you ever read the Carlos Castaneda books, Don Juan used to say to Carlos about the power of breaking our habits and not doing anything by rote. And he said instead, the power, the way we build our light is by being in each present moment and following our inner guidance and just being available to what is right now. So I think that's the ultimate lesson of all this. All right. Moving on now, New Year's. We need to talk about New Year's, and then we're going to talk about 2024 before we move into questions. So New Year's is such a great time to do ceremony, to practice. You basically can. It's a time to let go of the previous year, and you welcome in the birth of the new year and the renewal that brings. And then you can also. It's like a little window of opportunity. I find really easy right now, between now and New Year's. It's easy to drop into meditation and tune in to the year ahead. Tune into 2024. What energies are coming in for you? What do you see? And to journal about that. So I've shared before on these calls some of the exercises that I always do for New Year's, and it's along these lines. But again, these are traditions that serve. These are not the not the kind that drain us. So first of all, what I always do is I take stock of the previous year. I get my journal out and I write a list of all the accomplishments, all the highlights, all the things I'm grateful for that happened in the past year. And it's kind of like it's an opportunity to let go of the past by writing it all down. And then when I'm complete with that, when I've done that list, then I do spend time visioning the new year ahead, and I journal about that. It's an opportunity to get inspired about the new you, right? Who you're becoming. So you write about what you see lies ahead for you. And then when you feel complete with all of it, you do a ceremony where you offer both of the lists up. And you can offer the list of the highlights and accomplishments of the previous year to the fire, if you like to do that. That's what I usually do. Sometimes it's nice to take the list of the visioning that you did for the new year ahead, and you fold it up and put it in a drawer, or put it under, a crystal on your altar or something like that, and then you don't look at it again until the end of the year, like now. So then you pull it out and you review it, and you get to see how your vision played out that year. It's a learning. So what parts of it manifested, what dropped away, maybe some things need to be carried over again into the next year. So anyway, all of those are very powerful exercises to do for New Year's. So if you've never tried that, I invite you to give it a try. I never miss that opportunity. Okay, last thing before we go to questions. 2024, a roller coaster ride. Like I said at the beginning of the call, when I meditated and tuned in on what to talk about today, this was a very clear image of a roller coaster ride. And so what is a roller coaster? It's got ups and downs, and it's full of fun, but it's also full of fear. So all of that, I think, is kind of what we're in for. And it's also, I think, the image of the roller coaster is important to remember that it's exactly what it says it is. It's a ride. And we can get off that ride anytime we want. And how do we do that? Witnessing and doing the clearing practices, the marriage of spirit exercises, or whatever you like to do. But when we practice witnessing and we do the clearing practices, the personality clearing practices, then that's how you get off the ride. So 2024 is going to be a great opportunity for spiritual growth and for strengthening our witnessing practice. I'm thinking of, it's also called an FGO. I think I've mentioned that on these calls before, an FGO. Frickin' growth opportunities. I've heard some other spiritual teachers use that phrase, and I have a feeling that's what we're in for, is a year of FGOs. And I think one of the most important things for us to remember as we go into the new year is to not buy into fear. Because the forces of separation are inviting us into fear and separation all the time. And no doubt there are going to be increasing opportunities in 2024 to practice witnessing and to do the processing work, to choose love and connection instead of the fear and the separation. And I mean, that's the path, right? That's what the path of spiritual awakening is all about. It's actually it's what life's always been about, but just now it's more amplified and more frequent, right? I think it's a great spiritual truth that always our quality of life is determined by how we handle change and by how we handle adversity, especially. And so the more we buy into fear or worry, and the more we buy into separation and getting angry at people who don't think like we do and that kind of thing, the stronger the forces of separation become. So that's why I'm kind of hammering this point home today. I think it's really critical to practice our witnessing in times like this. This is what it's about. And 2024 is going to be, a year of change and a year of growth for everybody. It's going to be an opportunity to put all of our spiritual practices to the test. And the end result of the spiritual practice is that it always brings us back to peace and back to love and back to joy. And I think that brings us full circle for our call today. Peace, love, and joy. Those are the themes of the holidays. Those are the themes all around us at this time of year, and it's why the holidays are one of my favorite times of the year. So it's a good note to end on, and I hope that you get to experience peace and love and joy. Because the truth is, it surrounds us all the time. And all we have to do is tap into it and welcome it and allow it. So, especially at this time of year, it's easy to do that. So I wish that for you, and thank you so much for being with me today on the call. It's time to move into the questions and sharing. Just look at the time. Yeah, we've got time. So I want to thank everybody who wrote in. I always really appreciate the heartfelt sharing and the questions. If you're new to the calls, the way this works is you can always email questions or sharing in advance to me. It goes to courses@corelight.org. And it's not always possible for me to answer all the questions, but I do read them all, and I get to as many of them as I can. And as you probably know, if it doesn't get answered by me, answers always come from somewhere. So you get your answer in a dream or from a book or another teacher or in meditation or whatever. All right. Let me pull up the questions for today. The first question is from Dave. The feeling of witness, is that just being cognitively aware that you are aware of your emotional state and therefore not being drawn into either side? So thank you, Dave. It's a great question. And I do know that you're enrolled in the new Paradigm of the Heart course. So I welcome you to the course. And it's true for anybody in any of our courses. You're welcome to write in, and your questions that apply to the courses get put into the pool of questions for the monthly calls now. So I do invite you, especially if you're taking one of our courses, to write in. So the answer to your question is yes, and also a no. Yes, in that you're absolutely right. The witness is also known as the objective observer. And I really like how simply you put it. You said, when we practice witnessing, it's when we're aware that we're aware. So it's literally awareness being aware of itself. And then in that state, you're awake to the emotions that are passing through you, and you know that you're not the emotions. You don't identify with the emotions. You know that you're pure awareness. You're pure consciousness. And when you have that, then you've got a sense of being okay with whatever emotion happens to be passing through you, and you don't make it all so real. And so, in that state, you don't get drawn into either side of a polarity. You don't take a position. So you're 100% right in that. And the reason I said partly the answer is no as well is because it's not just that. It's a bit more than that as well. There are many other components to practicing witnessing besides what we're referring to as you might call mindfulness or awareness. And so some of these other aspects of witnessing are I've got a little list here I'm going to read to you. Non-judgment, spiritual detachment, surrender, discernment, neutrality. And there's more, but these are all aspects of practicing witnessing. So if you're interested in those different aspects, I can refer you to a few places. There are a couple of the spiritual weather report calls when I talked about a few of these. Just last month, November 2023, I spent quite a bit of time talking about discernment and how it relates to witnessing. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to listen to that, but if you wanted to re-listen to that part, you can find the MP3 of the audio recording. It's archived on our free resources page. I mentioned it earlier. If you go to CORELIGHT.org and go to free resources, you just look for the sub-tab called monthly, monthly call, and you'll find November 2023 there. And then also, a year ago, was November of 2022, I talked a lot about witnessing. I think almost the whole call I talked about witnessing, and it was especially devoted to the aspect of spiritual detachment. So if that interests you, I can refer you to that. You might want to go check that one out. Again, it's on the free resources page, on the same page as the one I just described. Then also, you probably, most people on the call I would think already know this, but Leslie and I wrote a whole chapter on witnessing in the Marriage of Spirit book. And Dave, you're taking the New Paradigm of the Heart course, and the witnessing chapter is a bonus in that course. So as you take the course, you'll find it in there somewhere. Don't know if you've had a chance to read it or not. But obviously, if you want the whole book, it's on our web store, or you can get it on Amazon, or actually any bookseller has it. So let's see. I talk. I wanted to say before we go to the next question, I talk a lot about witnessing on these calls. I hope I don't sound like a broken record to you all. But it's one of the most important practices on the journey of spiritual awakening. I would say witnessing and the ego clearing practices are two of the most important practices. So those two things and meditation, really those are the three key things I think, in my experience, those are the most helpful. There are others, but meditation especially really supports the practice of witnessing. And I think it's important to say that the neutral witness is actually your connection to your higher self. And eventually we come to see that the witness is an opening from our limited personal mind into the universal mind. So it really is our spiritual awakening. Witnessing is our spiritual awakening, and it's a practice. And the more we can be in it, the more awake we are to the truth of who we are. So there's a lot more that could be said about witnessing, but I hope that that's helpful for now. Please let me know. It's an excellent question, Dave, and if you have more questions or sharing about witnessing or anything related to the New Paradigm of the Heart course, I'd love to hear from you. And like I said, it's true for anybody taking any of our courses. We are trying out this new format where there aren't live Q&A Zoom calls with our online courses anymore, but you can write in questions, and they get put into this pool of questions for the monthly Spiritual Weather Report calls. So, and I really always appreciate hearing from everybody. So I invite you, please send your sharing and questions in. Thanks. All right. Next question is Asia from Finland. She says, I'm processing the reluctance of owning property and such. I have found that reluctance of owning is related to worthlessness and the desire for maximum liberty. Maybe there are other components too. It feels like a suffocating block around the neck and shoulder area. I would love to hear your thoughts. So thank you, Aisha. I really appreciate your question. I can definitely relate to what you're saying. And I'm sure many people listening can relate as well. I think so many of us on the spiritual path have had other lifetimes as ascetics and as monks and nuns. And in those lifetimes, we took vows of poverty. And we didn't own much. Our focus was on the spiritual world, not the material world. So there's this part of us that knows the joy of leading a very simple life, right? free of material possessions, unencumbered. And there's a whole movement nowadays. It's called minimalism. I don't know if you know about that, but I think it's because people are discovering the joy and the freedom that comes from having few possessions and keeping only what you really need. So yeah, I'm totally with you on the joys of few possessions and the feeling of freedom that comes from that. I've spent the last few years purging a ton of stuff, and it just feels really good. You feel so much lighter. You feel less burdened. You feel like you're letting go of ballast, right? That's weighing you down. I have the image of the hot air balloon that when you drop the ballast, you can ascend to the heights, and you're a hot air balloon. That's how I think about it, and I think that's kind of the high side of this equation that you're talking about here. But you also mention that it's related to worthlessness, and I agree with you. And I actually have a lot to say about that. Not sure how much time we have for that today, but let me share a few things with you for now. In some of those lifetimes, when we were ascetics and monks and nuns, we were taught that self-sacrifice and, let's say, burden-bearing were saintly qualities, and that we should always strive for those goals of self-sacrifice and burden-bearing. So we spent entire lifetimes developing the qualities of self-sacrifice and burden-bearing, and that's essentially martyrdom. And as we know, martyrdom is part of an old paradigm. It's the patriarchal paradigm. It's actually not something we want to strive for anymore. Martyrdom is an imbalanced egoic state, and it needs to be released and cleared. A martyr is somebody who is both a victim and a savior at the same time. And those are just roles. All of those things, they're just roles. They're egoic patterns that are out of balance. They don't serve us. They're not going to help us with our spiritual awakening. It's interesting. I was just talking about the new paradigm of the heart course that the previous questioner is enrolled in, and I really go into this topic in depth in that new paradigm of the heart course. There's a whole module on the martyr-savior role, and there's another whole module on the victim role. And so all those roles are related. You cannot have one without the other. The victims need saviors, and saviors need victims to save. We're moving out of victim consciousness right now. The whole world is in that. We're transcending victim consciousness. That's what the whole new paradigm of the heart, this new paradigm that we're birthing, is all about that specifically. It's about letting that go. So the worthlessness piece that you're talking about here ties in because it's part of those religious lifetimes, especially when we were these ascetics, and monks and nuns. In those lifetimes, we were taught, a lot of them, not all of them, but we were taught that we were born sinners. And in fact, that's still taught in some religions today. It's the doctrine that's called original sin, and most of you probably know about that. It says we're born sinners, we're born full of sin, and we're worthless. And life is about redeeming ourselves. That's why we're here. So we have to work hard to be redeemed so that we can purge as much of the sin as possible so that when we die, we can go to heaven instead of going to hell. And the way we used to purge our sinfulness was through pain. And the more pain and the more suffering, the better, because that way there was more sin that we could purge. And the less likely we were to go to hell. And of course, that whole thing is fear-based. And I know it sounds silly, simplistic and even ridiculous to our modern ears, especially if you're not raised in a religious way. But the truth is we're all still affected by this, whether we know it or not, whether or not you had those kind of past lives. It's in the collective consciousness still today. So this doctrine still has its effect on us, even if we're not conscious that it does. Those patterns that I was talking about, the victim and the martyr, they still get played out so much in our world. And if you take a moment, just take a little time to briefly examine your own life, you'll probably see that some of that is happening for you. Most of us play those roles to some degree, especially the victim, right? Victim consciousness it's like the fish in water. It's a pattern that is predominant, but it goes unnoticed most of the time. So I'm going to give you a little example. I remember, and I've spoken about this before, but it bears repeating. I remember I was raised in the Episcopal Church, also known as the Anglican Church, and every Sunday we would all say a prayer together, the whole effing church. It went something like this. I know it by heart. Lord, I am unworthy so much as to gather up the crumbs from under thy table. But thou art the same Lord whose property is always to have mercy. And then, it goes from there. But basically every week we were reaffirming that we were worthless sinners and we had to rely on some kind of outside source to redeem us and save us. And that's just not true. That is not the truth. That's not who we are. So yeah, if there's any part of us that's still unconscious of any personality patterning associated with those roles, associated with the sense of worthlessness, then we're going to be hooked into that old paradigm. And if that's the case, that patterning is going to affect how we think and how we feel and how we act in every aspect of our life. So Asia, to your excellent point, you are seeing accurately that any part of us that might feel reluctant to own property could be coming from that patterning associated with worthlessness and victimization and martyrdom and asceticism and all of that is so much about, like I said, self-sacrifice and burden bearing. So it helps to use the processing methods, whatever you like to use, but the ones we present in the Marriage of Spirit book are good for this. And I go into it all in depth in the New Paradigm of the Heart course to take a closer look at all of that and clear it out of our system so we don't have to be affected by it anymore. And I also just want to add, I know we're out of time here, but I want to add before I close, it's really interesting, Asia, that you said it feels like a suffocating block around the neck and the shoulder area, and I completely agree with you. I've experienced that myself. The shoulders are especially the place where we carry burdens. And when we carry energetic burdens, past life burdens, emotional burdens, ancestral karmic burdens, whatever the burden is, it often manifests in our physical shoulders. So I've woken up to a lot of this and processed this because I got a shoulder injury. And when I looked at it, I started unraveling all these processes that I'm talking with you about today. I've been working on healing this shoulder injury, and I've seen that it comes right from those patterns, right from those lifetimes. And so I am with you, with you in this. And the good news is that if you process that consciousness, you don't have to carry the burden. You don't have to carry it energetically, and you definitely don't have to get a shoulder injury. And I speak from personal experience here. So I hope that's helpful. There's a lot more I could say about this, but I think we're out of time for today. So if you want any more on that, I do go into a lot of this in the New Paradigm of the Heart course. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you, Asia. Thanks for your great question. All right, my friends, that's all we have time for today. So I'm going to wrap up now with a final prayer and a meditation, and we'll do our offering up of the square that we did on War and Peace. So if you can bear with us here, hang in for another 3 minutes. We'll release this burden. We don't want that manifesting on our shoulders, do we? So I invite you to get quiet and still, and if you're multitasking, this would be a great time to just stop for a couple minutes. Sit down or lie down and take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And I invite you to just relax. Relax and let go. Breathing in all the light and the life force that surrounds you. Breathing out any tension in the body. Great Spirit, we're offering up to you, offering up to the universe, all of the imbalances we discovered in our square. We're offering up the polarity of war and peace, the desires and fears of each side of that. We've shone the light on the shadow. We've made the unconscious conscious. We've seen the imbalances and the limitations, and now we're letting it go. We're giving it back to Spirit. We thank you. We give it back knowing that grace is doing her work of coming in and helping us to be free. Bringing us into balance, bringing us into wholeness. Bringing us into a deep, deep place of inner peace and love and joy. We give thanks knowing this is so. And as we enter into the holiday period now, we're calling in all the powerful energies of this portal, the peace, the love, the joy that surround us. May we be able to see the light in the darkness. May we be able to see the light behind all of the consumerism, all of the meaningless traditions. There is light behind all these things. There's meaning and purpose behind all of it. Help us to see that and to receive the gift of building our light. Please help us strengthen our witness. And we dedicate this next time period of this power portal to peace in the world, to the cessation of war, to the alleviation of suffering for all involved. To all who are working for universal peace. And we give thanks knowing that this is so. There's a great burden being lifted right now. I can feel it. So I invite you to just, as we close out, if you have time, to just stay with this. I invite you to just stay in meditation for a while longer while this release happens. It's very powerful. And if you're not feeling it, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. It's happening anyway, even if you're not feeling it. And I thank you once again. Thank you for joining me today, joining this group and participating in the field of love. Thank you for sharing your love. And I send you my love, as I know Leslie does too. Sending love from the foot of the sacred mountain, Madimale. Madimale means God is here in the local language. So thank you once again. I love you. I wish you a very, very happy, joyful, peaceful, holy day season. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the new year. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Alalaho. Isn't it wonderful? All right, everybody. Bye for now. All my love.